The year is 2041, and my name is Melinda Walters, but everyone that knows me calls me Mel. I always thought that I wouldn't be around to see the end of the world, but I guess I was wrong. The earliest recorded pandemic dates back to 430 BC and occurred during the Peloponnesian War when as much as 2/3 of the population died. Then there was the bubonic plague, also known as the Black Death, which was responsible for wiping out 1/3 of the world's population. Dead bodies became so prevalent that many remained rotting on the streets, creating a constant stench in cities all over the world during that time. Then there was smallpox, cholera, yellow fever, the Spanish and then Russian flu, swine flu, Ebola, and coronavirus, also known as COVID-19. I'm sure there were some that I left out, but those are just some of the worst ones that come to mind. Coronavirus was the last pandemic to wreak havoc on the world. It struck for the first time in 2019 and 2020, killing thousands of people. It originated in China, no one knows how exactly, and then it spread to the rest of the world through everyone traveling. I was a teenager then and lucky enough not to catch it, but it took the life of my grandmother who lived in a nursing home at the time. Then as quickly as it appeared, it just vanished after about 6 months, and then came back with a vengeance 10 years later in 2030. I just started my first nursing job at a doctor's office shortly before that, and it was pretty scary. I mean, you're around sick people 5 days a week, and no matter how clean you try to be, there are germs lurking on literally every single surface. I ended up getting sick that time, but thankfully when I was tested, it turned out to be just a bad cold and not the coronavirus. But the second time it hit, it killed double the number of people than it did the first time. It hasn't returned since, and I hope that it never does. But now we have a new virus to worry about. Every fall and winter, the common flu strikes and ends up taking some lives. But 5 years ago, it started to get really bad when a new strain appeared, called the HN3. And ever since then, it's just progressively gotten worse. Every single year, it continues to wipe out more and more people. And now, there are only a small amount of us left. When it first started spreading, everyone was wearing face masks and gloves, but now it's gotten to the point that we have to wear a full hazmat suit. Lucky for me, I was a nurse working at a hospital when this all started to take a turn for the worse, and that's how I was able to get the suits for me and my brother. No cure has been discovered for the virus yet, and the flu shot does absolutely nothing to fight against it. It's not like it matters anyway. I mean, there's nowhere to get it anymore with all of the hospitals and doctors' offices closed down. Because of my job working as a nurse, I've also learned that there are different stages to the virus. Stage 1. People who get sick exhibit regular flu-like symptoms. Stage 2. The body temperature begins to rise, causing the person to become somewhat delirious, and then they start to display erratic behavior, like always blurting out random events that have occurred throughout their life. They are in complete denial that they are even sick. In Stage 3, their temperature gets so high that the skin begins to bubble because it's burning. They are totally unaware of anything going on around them, and their fight or flight instincts kick in, which makes them extremely dangerous. The most terrifying part is that there's no way of really knowing what stage a person is going through, unless you see the bubbling skin. I've heard that temperatures have been recorded as high as 150 degrees, which is unlike any other type of flu on record. A regular flu patient's temperature when they have a fever would be 100, 104, or 108 degrees tops before the body starts shutting down and they end up dying. But there's something about this new strain of the flu. It thrives off of the heat, refusing to let those who have become infected die. So they're just walking around here infecting more and more people when all we're trying to do is survive. Something else I've also come to find out about it is that in the coldness, so mainly late fall and winter, the people who have this virus, their bodies shut down and they become dormant. The first few years the virus was around, every winter when the infected started to disappear, we would always get ahead of ourselves, thinking that we'd taken back the area. But as soon as the temps started to rise above 50 degrees, they all came flooding out from wherever they'd been hibernating, like some sick, twisted bears. But now we know better. My brother Martin and I have been hiding out at my friend Kayla's house for the last 6 months. Kayla and I know each other from working at the hospital together. We were both nurses there before all of this happened, and her boyfriend Xavier is also with us. We know there are other people out there, normal people who haven't been infected yet, just like us, but finding them has proven to be extremely difficult. We've been searching for a safe haven since things got really bad, and Martin finally heard something on the radio the other day. There's a place out in California where people like us can go, and it's safe there. They have food, clean water, shelter, and other supplies. What we're contemplating now is whether it's safe enough for us to try to make our way out there. Our problem is that a few weeks ago, spring arrived, and the weather is going to be nice for the next 7 months, which means that the infected will be out in full force. But we can't wait that long to make the journey to Los Angeles, because by then, everyone who's there will be gone. We only have 30 days to try to get there, and that's plenty of time with us coming from Phoenix, Arizona, but we're bound to run into some obstacles along the way. After 30 days, the military is sending in troops to transport everyone out of there. I heard that it's safe in Canada, for now, so I assume that's where everyone will be taken for the time being. Kayla wants to leave tomorrow, but I disagree. We're not ready. We need more supplies. None of us have eaten anything besides a few bites of a candy bar in the last 2 days. We're scheduled to make a food and water run tomorrow, but we already know that all of the local supermarkets around the area are empty, so we're going to have to travel farther out. The plan is that we're going to just keep going from there. And I have to admit, I'm really scared. Not knowing how bad it is out there and if we'll be able to find a safe place to hide and sleep every night is going to be extremely nerve-wracking. "Hey, are you all packed?" Martin walks into my room and asks. "Almost," I reply as I stuff a sweatshirt into my backpack and zip it closed. "What about you?" "Yeah, I'm not taking much. I figure better save as much space as possible for when we find more supplies and food." "You mean if we find more supplies and food?" I say, correcting him. "Come on, you gotta have a little faith, Mel." "I do, it's just..." I pause for a moment, let out a sigh, and sit down next to him on the bed. We don't know what else is out there. What if everywhere we go is just like it is here? No food, no water, no nothing, except for the infected roaming around. "Look, I know you're afraid. I am too. But that's just a chance we're going to have to take if we want to make it to California." The next day we get into our hazmat suits and then make sure that we have everything we're going to need for the journey. The first few days and nights go okay. We see some of the infected roaming around, but they don't bother us. But after traveling for a week, we run into some trouble. We come across a grocery store, and from the road we can already see that it's not fully stocked, but there are still some things on the shelves. Resources have been scarce for a while now, but luckily there's still some good Samaritans left out there in the world who sometimes leave stuff at different locations for people like us who are really struggling during this time. And it's times like these when you realize how important all of the little things in life that you're just used to having on a regular basis are, like toilet paper. I haven't used that stuff in a very long time. It's probably surprising, but that was one of the first things that was gone when shit hit the fan. From the road, we can't see what the items on the shelves in the store are exactly, but we're hoping that we find some things that we need. As the four of us begin crossing the street, a group of people walk out from behind the building and begin to approach us. They're not wearing any protective gear, which immediately gives me a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach, because we know that this new strain of the flu is airborne. "Looks like we may have run into some trouble," Xavier says. Then him and Martin move in front of me and Kayla, and we continue walking toward the store. The man at the front of the group walks up to Xavier and grabs his arm. "Hey, do you guys have any water?" "Did you check the store?" Xavier questions, pointing toward the door. "Yeah, there's none in there," the man answers, coughing all over Xavier's helmet. I back up a little as the man starts apologizing. "Sorry about that. I'm just so thirsty. My throat is so dry. I never got my soda when I went to the movies. But I'm telling you, I know I paid for it already. He complains, coughing a few more times. It's obvious that he's sick. I can tell from how flushed his face is, and his eyes are extremely red. Just by looking at him, I'd guess that he was a stage 2, but there's no way to know for sure. What about booze? Do you have any of that? He asks, staring at our backpacks. No, I'm sorry, but we don't have much of anything left. That's why we're here. We were just about to check that store for some supplies, Xavier tells the man. As we begin walking toward the store once again, the group of people start following behind us. We just keep going and don't say anything. Honestly, I feel bad for that guy. I feel awful for anyone who gets sick, because not all of them are terrible people. The virus just makes them act that way. At the end of the day, they're all still human and need food and water to survive, just like the rest of us. And the ones who aren't too delirious and have somewhat of a conscience left, they just want help. But what they don't understand is that there's nothing we can do for them. As we walk through the hole where the glass door used to be, a nervous feeling washes over me. Xavier and Kayla go one way, while me and Martin go another. I make my way over to where the canned goods are located, and luckily there are some left. The selection isn't so great, but you can't really complain when you're in this type of predicament. So I unzip my backpack and start piling cans of corned beef hash, Spam, green beans, and tuna fish inside. My bag is nearly full when out of the corner of my eye I see a hand reach over my shoulder and grab for my water bottle inside. I leap up and turn around to see the same sick man who followed us into the store. Hey, what's your problem? There's more than enough for you to grab some too, I tell him. Martin hears me and marches over from the next aisle. You told me you didn't have any water. That's because this is hers. We don't have any to share, Martin shouts. I take the bottle out of my bag and hand it to the man. Here, take it. What are you doing? Martin asks. He already touched the cap. It's no good now. Suddenly, the man gets extremely angry about what I just said, and he slaps the bottle out of my hand. What the hell is your problem? What are you trying to insinuate? I'm not even sick. The other people that he walked into the store with hear us arguing and start to make their way over. So do Kayla and Xavier. Look, we've already got everything we need here, so we'll just leave now. We'll even leave you a few bottles of water, and you guys can take whatever's left in the store, Xavier says, trying to compromise. I changed my mind. It's not the water that I want. There are 4 of you and 4 of us. Give us those suits. I'm sure you've probably had them to keep you safe this entire time. I think that it's time for the rest of us to feel safe now. The others who are with the man nod their heads in agreement. Then one of the women blurts out, Yeah, Mom, you can't tell me what to do anymore. I'm old enough to do what I want now. Xavier just stands there, not responding, which only makes the man angrier. I said give it to me. I need it so that I don't get sick, he yells, jamming his finger into the chest of Xavier's suit. It's too late. You're already sick. No, I'm not. Why do you keep saying that? I interrupt. Xavier, don't even bother arguing with him. I think he's a stage 2 already. The man throws the can that he's holding in his hands across the room. I'm not a goddamn stage 2. I told you, there's nothing wrong with me. Why don't you understand that? Then suddenly, he leans back and throws a punch, hitting Xavier right in the helmet, which catches him completely off guard, and he goes tumbling backwards, crashing into the shelf that's behind him. It tips over and crashes into the next one and just keeps on going, knocking them all down like a chain of dominoes. Then the man hops on top of Xavier and starts trying to rip his helmet off. As Kayla begins to scream and the others who came in with the man move in closer, preparing to attack, I race forward and begin shoving the man, trying to get him off of Xavier. But he has such a tight grip on his suit that he's not even budging. I glance behind me and see Martin reach into his backpack and pull out his gun. He aims it at the man, and as I leap out of the way, he lets off one shot, hitting him right in the back of the head. Come on, we've got to get out of here, Kayla screams. I push the man's bloody body off of Xavier and help him up, Then we start running toward the exit, but then we see that the three of them are standing there, blocking it and angrily shouting at us, "Give us the suits!" I look over at Martin panicked. I think they're all sick. So we turn around and frantically search for another way out. "Here, this way," I shout, pointing toward a door at the back of the store. Then I make a beeline for it, and I swear that Xavier, Martin, and Kayla are all right behind me. But when I turn around, Xavier is way behind the rest of us, and the others are attacking him. He's screaming for help as they try to rip his suit right off of his body. One of them gets a glove off. Then they tackle him to the ground like a bunch of hungry animals and begin yanking at his helmet. "We have to do something," Kayla screams. That's when Martin raises his gun, aiming it at them, but right before he lets off the first shot, two of them get Xavier's helmet loose and rip it halfway off of his head, exposing his nose and mouth. Martin pulls the trigger 3 times, hitting one of them and scaring the others into backing off long enough for Xavier to pull his helmet back down and get up off of the ground. We race toward the door in the back of the store, and we all make it through and prop a bunch of wood pallets sitting back there up against it just as they reach the other side and start slamming and banging up against it. "We better get out of here before they come through the front," I say. So we start running down the back street, but not even 15 seconds later, Xavier sneezes, and then as he stares at us in utter horror and disbelief, he starts to cough. I hadn't known until right this very second that the virus was able to infect a person so fast. Trying to reassure us, he quickly says, "I'm okay, don't worry. My helmet was only off for a few seconds." But I can already tell that he's caught the virus because he's having a hard time breathing. "Come on, let's go," he tells us. Martin walks up ahead with Xavier, and Kayla and I walk behind them. When I'm sure they're far enough in front of us that they can't hear, I pull her aside and whisper, "You know he can't come with us, right?" A tear falls from her eye as she nods her head. "We'll let him walk with us for a little while until we decide what to do." She agrees, and I give her a hug before we run to catch back up with the guys. As we get far enough away from the store that it's now out of sight, Martin grips my wrist. "Ow, that hurts. What are you doing? What in the hell happened?" I look down to see what it is that he's referring to and see that I have a tiny little rip in the arm of my suit. Instantly, I start to panic. One of the shelves must have nicked my suit when they fell. Oh my God, what am I going to do? "Listen, we'll just tape it up until we can get you a new one. It'll be okay." "But what if I'm already infected?" "I don't think you are. You'd be showing symptoms already. Didn't you see how fast they kicked in when Xavier got exposed?" Then he pulls out a roll of duct tape from his bag and begins to wrap it around my arm again and again. By the time he's finished, it's so tight that I feel like I'm getting my blood pressure taken. "We'll keep an eye on you, and if you start to show any symptoms whatsoever, then we'll have to leave you behind." "Okay," I answer, knowing that he's right, and if it comes down to it, then I won't have a choice in the matter. A few hours later, Martin stops and tells Kayla that it's time to go say her goodbyes to Xavier, but he warns her not to let him know what's about to happen because he doesn't want him to be scared. So the two of them walk off, and about 20 minutes later she returns alone. She grips my hand tightly and we start walking again, but Martin turns in the other direction and walks over to where Xavier is. The next thing I know, I hear a gunshot, and when I turn back around, I see Xavier's body drop to the ground right in the middle of the street. Then Martin comes running after us. When he catches up, he immediately starts apologizing to Kayla. "I'm so sorry. I wish I didn't have to do that, but he was going to die eventually, and I didn't want him to suffer and infect more people until it was his time to go." "I know. I understand why you had to do it," she says as she sobs on my shoulder. "But we all know that's how it is during these trying times. We've all had to make difficult decisions and get used to seeing our loved ones die." We continue our journey without Xavier, and finally a day later we reach the sign welcoming us to California. Now we just have a few more days to go until we make it to LA. I haven't shown any symptoms of the virus yet, which has me relieved. But I also haven't found a new suit either, which really worries me because I don't want to get all the way to the compound and they tell me I can't enter because my suit has a tear in it. As it starts to get dark, we look for a place to camp out for the night and find shelter in an abandoned gas station. Kayla and I find a spot in the corner and lie down to try and get some rest, while Martin takes the first shift keeping watch. It's been this way ever since the sickness started to spread and everyone began to panic. You have to have someone standing guard at all times because you never know who may be trying to sneak up on you to steal your stuff, or when the stage 3s will come lurking around, and those are the crazies that you really have to worry about. I fall asleep rather quickly, but am soon awakened by the sound of a loud noise. I look around and see Kayla sleeping peacefully, but there's no sign of my brother. So I get up and go looking for him. As I leave the room that we're sleeping in, I quietly close the door behind me, trying not to wake Kayla. I turn on my flashlight and zip my hoodie all the way up. This part of the gas station is extremely cold because the wind is howling and blowing right through all of the broken windows. Since the place isn't that big, I can already see that he isn't in here. So next I check the bathroom, which as soon as I push open the creaky door, I think to myself, maybe he went outside to go to the bathroom because this is just atrocious. By looking at the sight of it, I don't even want to imagine what it must smell like, and thankfully because of my suit, I'll never know. I quickly close the door, assuming that he must be outside then. As soon as I walk out there, I immediately see some of our supplies strewn all over the ground, leading all the way across the street into another abandoned building, some bagel shop. "Martin!" I call, loudly whispering his name again and again. When I don't get a response, I start walking across the street, and when I reach the other building, I shine the light through the windows, trying to see if he's inside. But they're too dirty and caked with grime to see anything. So I let out a deep breath, and even though I don't want to, I step inside to go look for him, calling his name over and over. "Martin, if this is one of your stupid little jokes, I'm going to be pissed." Still no reply. I search the small dine-in area first, but find nothing except for trash, moldy bagels, and cream cheese strewn about. Next, I check the bathroom. That's empty too. Then when I walk to the back of the shop, I shine my flashlight around, and relief runs through me when I finally see Martin, but he's standing so far away that I can only see his face. "Martin, what in the hell are you doing back there? You're supposed to be keeping watch." When he doesn't answer, I walk a little closer. "Martin, did you hear me?" The relief that I felt only a moment ago has now shifted to fear. There's something about his face. It's not budging at all, and his expression is completely blank as he just continues to stare straight ahead. And why in the hell isn't he answering me? I continue to slowly make my way over to him, and when I finally turn the corner and reach him, I ask, "Why aren't you answering me?" Then I shine the flashlight at him and let out a blood-curdling scream. His head is displayed on a tall stick that's stuck into the floorboards, and there's no sign of his body anywhere. That's when I hear a noise. It sounds like someone chewing. I frantically shine the flashlight all around the room and then come to rest on one of the infected kneeling down on the floor behind Martin, rummaging through his bag and eating our supplies. As I continue to shine the light at her, she moves, allowing me to get a better look at her back. There's a patch of bubbling skin right at the top, in between the shoulder blades, and then another on the right elbow, which tells me that she's a stage 3. Suddenly she begins coughing so hard that I swear she's about to hack up a lung, but the only thing that does come up is chunks of blood and unchewed food. As I stand there, frozen in fear, too terrified to move, I keep telling myself, "Mel, get a hold of yourself. Run, you've got to get the hell out of here now." But my body is fighting against me and not letting me move. Once she stops coughing, she starts talking to herself. She grabs her head and covers both of her ears, then says, "Too much noise, too loud." Then she reaches down and grabs a handful of what she just threw up and shoves it into her mouth, then gulps it down. Once she swallowed it, she wipes her mouth with the back of her hand and says, "Much better. Quiet now." Then she stands up, which finally snaps me out of my daze, and as I turn to go running out of there, I accidentally kick an empty plastic cup, and she hears me and starts chasing after me. I make it outside, but that's when she catches up to me and tackles me to the ground. She starts drooling and banging on my helmet. Immediately I panic, because I know that the plastic is very easy to crack or break. I can hear my suit tearing, and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, hoping that Kayla will hear me and come to help. But then I remember that she's not very good or helpful in these types of situations, so I'm probably better fighting this thing off myself. As she's slamming her head up against my helmet, I start to think, damn, I wish I had Martin's gun right now. He showed me how to use the thing once when he took me to a shooting range. I mean, I don't remember anything that he said, but it can't be too hard. You just point, aim, and shoot, right? But it doesn't matter anyway, because I have no idea where it even is. Then I realize that I actually have a weapon in my hand right now. So I start punching her in the head with my one hand, and then with my other, I bash the other side of her head with my flashlight, until finally she falls to the ground and stops moving as blood comes spilling out of her head. Out of breath, I get up, but keep pounding her in the head with the now broken flashlight, just as Kayla comes running across the street. She looks at me terrified when she sees me covered in blood. Oh my God, what happened? Martin's dead. We have to get out of here now. What's going on? I don't understand. What do you mean he's dead? Did he get infected? No, it was a stage 3. She murdered him. We go back into the gas station and grab our backpacks. Then as Kayla helps me tape up the rips in my suit, she asks, "Are you okay? Do you want to go back to say goodbye?" I shake my head. No, we've got to keep moving. That's what he would want us to do. He died protecting us while we were sleeping, so I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it to LA. I doubt I'll be able to get much sleep now anyway, with him not around to watch our backs. Just as we're leaving, she questions, "Now what are we going to do? Martin had the only gun, and not only that, he had the rest of our food. We'll just have to find some more." But it took us days to find that. What if we can't find any more? Don't worry, we will, I assure her. But 2 days go by, and we still haven't come across any stores or houses that have any food left in them. I'm starving, and my mouth is so goddamn dry it feels like a desert. Not to mention that I've been nonstop thinking about my brother. That's when we come across a sign for Los Angeles that says 100 more miles. I know that it will take us at least another 2 to 3 days to get there, and how I'm feeling right now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it without any food and water. Then finally, I just get so tired that I start to slow down. Kayla's walking up ahead of me when I collapse to the ground. When she finally notices what's happened, she races over to me and helps me up. "Are you okay?" I stare at her in a daze and then smile. I hate Grandma's cooking. I know I always tell her I like it, but I can't stand it. It makes me want to gag, I say before bursting into laughter. "Why are you thinking about that right now?" she asks. But before I can even answer, she says, "Probably because you're hungry, right? I am too." We continue on and come across a little market that we break into. Most of the food is spoiled, but we're able to find half a box of crackers that aren't too stale and a jar of jam, which is better than nothing, especially when you haven't eaten anything in days. And there's a case of Yoo-hoo left, which tastes a little funny and makes my stomach feel even funnier. I know that they've got to be expired, but it's not like it matters when you're at the point of collapsing from dehydration. Once I've finished eating, I grab another can of Yoo-hoo, then begin pouring it all over my head. "What are you doing?" Kayla questions with a concerned look on her face. "I'm washing my hair." "Here, do you want some shampoo?" I ask, handing her an unopened can. "Are you feeling okay?" "Yeah, why?" "Because you're acting kind of weird." "If you say so," I reply, shrugging my shoulders. Then I get up and grab a t-shirt from one of the toppled over racks and begin to dry the shampoo from my hair. After that, I put my helmet back on, we stock up on supplies, and then we leave. 3 days later, we arrive at the doors to the compound in Los Angeles. I breathe a sigh of relief, and both Kayla and I start to tear up as we hug each other. It's been such a long journey. Ever since we decided to come here, nothing has gone right, but we finally made it. I'm so exhausted and hungry that I can barely think straight. But before we can even get inside, we have to wait in a long line to have our temperatures taken. If we have even the slightest fever, we will be taken to another location to be quarantined and tested for the virus. After waiting in line for hours, we finally make it to the front. First, Kayla steps forward, raises her helmet, and a woman lifts the thermometer to her forehead and waits for the beep. After a few seconds, I hear it, and the woman reads the number on the thermometer before telling Kayla that she's okay to go through. She looks back at me and smiles. Then the lady calls me forward. I move up and take off my helmet, then she raises the thermometer to my head. After a few seconds, I hear the beep once again, and as soon as she looks at the thermometer, my heart starts to race. She stares from it to me, then back down at it again. "What's wrong?" I question. She completely ignores me and waves a man in a yellow hazmat suit over, and he immediately grabs me. "Let go of me! What the hell is going on?" I shout as the man starts to drag me away. I overhear the woman telling Kayla that I have a fever of 104 degrees, and although she doesn't have one, she has to be held in isolation for 14 days because she was traveling with me and could have been exposed to the virus and just isn't showing symptoms yet. As the man hauls me away, I scream, "No, please, but I'm not even sick. You're making a huge mistake." As I get farther away, Kayla shouts through the crowd, "Mel, I'm so sorry, but you're a stage 2. You've been coughing and acting funny for a while now, but after losing everyone else, I couldn't bear to lose you too. I would have probably never made it here on my own. And you still managed to get me here, even though you were sick. You truly are my best friend. Thank you so much." Then she bursts into tears. All I can manage to scream is, "But I'm not sick." But I'll tell you what did make me sick. Grandma's cooking. Boy, I'm telling you, I hated that stuff. Don't forget to subscribe for new stories weekly. See you next time on
Nina's Nightmares.
Really? You're supposed to click the like button, not me. Ugh.